All right, we might go ahead and get things going. If anybody joins in, we'll just admit them into the call as we get going. So we're still pending on whether or not we'll get CM credits for this. I'll update everybody if we wind up getting access to that. I think folks with state level are a little busy right now. In the meantime, though, we'll go over the basics of some AI-based tools that are pretty new, so many of you may not have a lot of experience with them. And we'll have a little bit of time in between each one that we can kind of go over any questions you all might have on ways you can integrate it into your everyday workflow, or other projects that you're working on, or at the end when we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration workshop as well. So we'll do a real-time example of how you can rapidly go through public engagement by using AI to help you go through it a bit quicker. So to kind of start things off, we're going to be covering a wide range of different types of AI tools. I think most of you are probably most familiar with what's known as ChatGPT. It's a generative large language model, which I'll go over a little bit about how those work here soon. An earlier one that was built off of some of the programming that was done for ChatGPT is called NovelAI. I'll go over some aspects of how it can be used for more text-based analysis or synthesization, so you can kind of start getting a better idea of what the public's saying from input you're getting for projects. Of course, DALL-E 2 and Midjourney are both image generation, GAN based AI models. They're to the forefront, I would say, for image generation and can save you a lot of time for basic visualizations, as well as some street redesign or other types of things you might be using in your planning work. Adobe Firefly is a new tool that was just released, I think, in the last month. It's been rolled out by Adobe in their beta version of Photoshop. So I'll go over that a little bit. And then AgentGPT, which is starting to use automated GPT processes, Microsoft Designer and Descript, which are two other programs which are a little bit more basic, depending on what you would wind up using them for. But this is an overview of some of the tools we'll kind of hit on today. To kind of start things off, I'm just going to copy the URL and I'll post it in the chat. So it's a quick little survey. What we'll do is we'll use the results from that survey at the end of the presentation to kind of give a real life example of how you can quickly gather input from the public, analyze it, and create visualizations based on that input to reach a quick consensus with a meeting.
Hey, Tyler.
Yep.
I clicked on the link and got a response that says, you need permission. This form can only be viewed by users in the owner's organization.
Me trying to use the APA, Google Drive, and I assumed it would work, but real quick because I think there my no, here it is. That should work.
Got it. Thank you.
So no need to, you can take that any point through the presentation. Like I said, I'll get to that like, slide closer to slide 20. So we have some time. It's just, again, a way that we can quickly show how you can kind of do some of this work on the fly. So some of the basics for how some of these tools work. So you may have heard some of these terms before. Just want to kind of go over just the general basic terms for AI-based models. So you have GANs, which are the image generation-based models. So all of these models are based on repositories and libraries that were already existing. There's not a lot. There's no chance that these models are going to create something that wasn't based on something that already existed, if that makes sense. So GANs are these huge language, these large models that will take an image and then it'll usually will overlay with another image, and over time it will wind up fixing it until it looks like something that's a little bit more realistic. Whereas large language models are it's a large data set of a bunch of different articles and materials and things online. So like ChatGPT, it's been trained on everything that was on the internet since before 2021. So newer stuff it does not have access to. So if you try and ask it things that have happened in like the past 2 years, it will not know. There are some ways with newer versions with like the paid for ChatGPT, you can have access to the internet. There's a plugin I'll go over that will show you some ways you might have some access to the internet. It's a little buggy. It's not perfect, but large language models also allow for easy way to do translations in a much more concise and better way than like Google Translate might be able to do. Transformers are these, pretty much the whole reason why these AI models are able to work. They're able to quickly and rapidly transmit information between different aspects of the model and allow for it to, generate something new or something, well, not new, but something, reshifted of that language or reshifted of that image. So that's just, some of the background aspects of like how these tools work. It's not just magic. There's like a lot of work and time that a lot of programmers have put into getting us to this point. So for the basics of ChatGPT, and I can show a couple, live demonstrations of how you can, use this in your workflow. So for the most part, I think a lot of people may start using ChatGPT to help you with writing emails. And I'm sure some of you all have maybe already started using it for that. So for example, let's say you have a request for someone to, someone wants to know what the process is for them to get a special use permit in your locality. And the person's been nagging at you to get that information to you, but you want to kind of come across as very professional. So you could say, right, you can specify, at the start of the email or at the end of the note, use a formal, kind tone, and it will, go ahead and craft you an email that maybe is acceptable, maybe not. You can also tell it, it shouldn't be that long. Try again. Keep the email to 2 to 3 paragraphs, and it'll redo the email for you. It's a very, it's really good for repetitive things you have to do, especially emails or reports. So for the same thing, you could take your staff report that you have to do for that special use permit for John, and put in the details that you'd have to write about, maybe the tax map number, the zoning, other aspects, and ask it to go ahead and change those out or draft the staff report based on a template that you've already used. You can also use it for grant writing. So, there's a lot of, for both very explicative ways that you need to be able to explain why your project or why that grant proposal is going to be the best one. ChatGPT could for you of being able to write that grant. Likewise, it can also help you with social media posts. So let's say prepare a Facebook post, upcoming commission meeting, in a fashion. And again, yeah, you kind of have to play around with it. It's not going to be exactly perfect when you're using this, but a lot of times I think, you can have a lot of tasks on your plate that you have to get done, and it's hard to know where to start. And this can at least give you a starting basis for creating those social media posts. And we can get into a little bit later about how this could actually wind up being automated in the future. So you actually don't have to do a lot of thinking at all for the social media posts. Likewise, I wouldn't recommend taking everything that it writes for you for, granted. You need to look at it with a fine-tooth comb because it is a machine that's it's pretty much just a baby machine. It doesn't know exactly the way things need to be, and the reason why it's open to the public is to train it. But you could have it help you with rudimentary research. So sometimes, like when we're doing zoning code updates, I might ask it, hey, this is what our locality is like. Can you list some other localities across the United States? Because you might wind up only doing research for localities within your region. List a couple and to say why that part of their zoning ordinance is important. You can go then check it out on their website. Um, Likewise, you could actually use it for zoning code updates. So you could take your zoning code and put it into ChatGPT and ask it to update it in certain ways, and it will go ahead and rewrite it for you in whatever ways you specified. It can prepare legal documents for you. So let's say prepare the easement and a lot of these are it's pretty much as if you were paying for one of those pre-made forms. Um, I'm not sure how your roles of attorneys are, but a lot of times attorneys are going to ask for some type of a basic template to be made for them to review. This can go ahead and make that basic template for you, so you're not thinking too much about what it's going to look like, and then you can review it with something else. Or, like I said, you could take an existing deed or whatever legal document you're using, put it into ChatGPT and say, do you understand this format? And it will say yes. And then you could ask it to write in that same format for whatever project that you needed to write on. Again, another thing that we use a lot for is for idea generation. So, for example, one of the things that the public had come up with was that we were going to have we're going to be carbon neutral by 2045, which it's a very daunting and large task. So we kind of wanted to know, like, based on what our public input and what ChatGPT might say, We would take those aspects for those chapters of the plan and ask it to go ahead and, teach it the format. So, here's some examples that you can see where like I've given ChatGPT the format of how we're writing goals and objectives. And then, using it with research from what we've done with the public to go ahead and draft that out into a fuller format that we can edit down or just, rapidize the process so that you're not spending a lot of time thinking about exactly what the words are going to say, but getting your point across. So there's a couple really good plugins you can get. I think they both work for Chrome as well as if you're using Mozilla Firefox. But these are I would say like the top ones that you may want to consider adding into your browser. The first one goes ahead and it gives you pre-made prompts that you can go ahead and base your what you're going to say. Some of them are for blog posts or social media. It has some for like writing a resume or things like that. And it can go ahead and it's already prepared for you or writing Dolly 2 or Midjourney prompts. So there's another one you can use, which is it allows ChatGPT to have some internet access. You can see here, this is the menu you kind of get for the one I was telling you about. It gives you the pre-made prompts. So you can just click any of these and it'll, have something ready for you. So say we want a motivational quote, see it'll give you the highlighted things that where you change. Then you're able to go ahead and put that in ChatGPT and you're then expediting the process of expediting things. But for the web access one, so for example, let's say we want to do some research on addressing, let's see, what's a hot topic, affordable housing, and we want to know some examples of places that have had a good opportunity of addressing affordable housing in rural localities. So you could say find 10 localities. So now it's going to look at the internet. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's going to find things like maybe something from the UN or some other things. See, like here, it struggled. So usually you have to then turn off its web access because the prompt of getting it to go to the web overloaded it because it's so much text. Or you may need to reduce the amount of results down to something like 3. So then you're not overloading it. So we say, and then boom, it gives you a couple examples of places that you may want to look at that have addressed affordable housing in rural places. Again, take it with a grain of salt. You can check the sources, but at least you're getting access to sources probably in a much more rapid way than you would have doing a Google search. And speaking of Google, you can get this following plugin allows it to go right into your emails. So it just adds a little box on the side of your Gmail, and you can just ask ChatGPT to finish the rest of your email right in the email dialog. There's no need to go back and forth between it. There's another one where it allows you to talk to it. So if I hold the spacebar down, I could just talk directly to ChatGPT and tell it what I want, and then it will go ahead and run whatever you dictated it to do. So along with what I was saying with Google, so if we go to Google, and we search something like, let's say like, rural housing, rural housing. On the side here, it will pop up with a little add-on for ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will also go ahead and run on the side and allow you to, it'll summarize whatever just came up on your page. So instead of scrolling through everything you had here, you can just read whatever ChatGPT just summarized what's on your web page. This last one, it just allows you to, it will pull from YouTube transcriptions and then articles and go ahead and provide you summaries for those things. It's not as useful as probably other aspects, but I'd say like these are the top plugins you would want to add into using ChatGPT to maximize. Of course, you know, if you're able to use like the newer versions of ChatGPT with ChatGPT version better, but you know, if you're trying to stay free and not spend money on it, this would be the things you'd want to use. And I can, you know, if you all have questions intermediately, feel free to ask them. I'm just kind of to try and cover in terms of what you can do with AI models. But if there's like dying questions, feel free to ask them. So in addition to everything else I showed you for ChatGPT, you can also translate. Unlike, you know, if you had been using, you know, Google Translate or other aspects to help you with translating any material, could actually just had ChatGPT act as a translator. So, for example, like I needed to translate everything for to do some research, and you know, you at least want to have something available. So, like everything I tell you, I want you to translate into Spanish, or everything I tell you, I want you to translate into this, and then you can just talk back and forth with it and get everything you need translated for you. Likewise, so there's a program called Descript, which some podcasters and other you know, YouTubers, video makers will use. There's a free version of it you can get. The premium version is certainly much better, but it will automatically transcribe any audio that you have. You know, if you had like, you know, some committee meeting and your task is to transcribe the meeting minutes, this could transcribe it for you. Then you could take that script and then plug it into ChatGPT and ask it to make minutes. You know, it's not going to be perfect because you still need to figure out like who said what during the meeting, but it could summarize in theory for you. Adobe Premiere also has this ability, and both allow for you to edit audio and video files straight from the script. No need to, you know, find it and then go and cut it. You can just remove the word. You can also clone your voice if you provide 10 minutes of your voice, and then you can, you know, add words that you may have missed. ChatGPT is also really good if you're using it, if you do any coding in your work, you know, be it for Python with ArcGIS, if you have to do HTML code for updating websites, or if, you know, you need to use it to, you know, run some type of analysis, like using like RStudio or Stata or some other software, it can prepare the code for you or fix your code. So if you're getting stuff off of GitHub, it could go ahead and fix it for you for whatever you need to use it for based on what you provided from GitHub. So with all those tools in mind, one of the things that is emerging with GPT type tools is what's known as AutoGPT. AutoGPT is pretty much, it allows it to iterate upon itself. So an example of this is called AgentGPT, and we could call it Planner GPT. And we could say the goal is to solve okay, well, this one might have just changed because now I guess you need to sign in for it, but I'll sign in real quick for it. But It's free. It's not something you have to pay for. If you do want it to go to its full extent, you do need to buy an API key from ChatGPT. Otherwise, it will just stop after some period of time. But the way it works is, so I give it a basic task. I mean, it's not basic, it's a big task, big goal. But what it'll do is it'll start prompting itself, saying like, okay, this is how I would solve this. And then it would start giving it tasks to go through, and then it'll go through and complete every single task. So here it's analyzing the problems of housing in the valley. And it's going to research certain programs that have had success. And now it's so what this could be used for in the near future, I'm saying like within a couple months, this could be tied into your social media. So, if you want to have like a blog post every week and you always forget, I need to go post this on Facebook, something like an AgentGPT or some AutoGPT program could be used to automatically just post every week for you on Facebook. Especially if you then tie it into something like some of the image generation models, which we'll get into now. So one of the basic image or visual generation model tools that you can use is Microsoft Designer. It's free, comes with your Microsoft account. You can say, let's make Facebook post. Any visuals too that are in this are AI generated. I didn't make any visuals for the presentation. So you can kind of see it'll do regular images or these like video type images. So another easy thing you can use, and you can talk about like what size you want it to be. This Facebook course is going to be a square. If you're asking it to be for a slideshow, it's going to make stuff like this. This was made with that. This was made with that. So you can kind of play around with it. It's a very basic tool, but what's nice about it is it does work with text. Anything like Dolly 2 or Midjourney, text does not work with those programs yet. So in addition to that, talking about Dolly 2 or Midjourney, these are some examples when we did public engagement last year, as well as our community survey we did for 2 years. We took the data from that input session, from when we asked folks, what they wanted to see from the top of the mountain, a summary of that, which I'll get into how we got that summary, made this image here in the top left-hand corner. When we asked folks what they wanted to see from the street in the future, this image here in the bottom left-hand corner was generated. They're not, from here at all, but, they're images that, people in the area could, potentially align to or see as like representing that vision, which is where, like I said, like it allows you to rapidly come to consensus with visuals that can be generated. These ones on the right, we're using all the data from that folks talked about the proposed Shenandoah Valley Rail Trail. So, sites of what people want to see from the rail trail or how people describe what the rail trail should look like. These 4 images, these were generated from Midjourney before it became a paid program. It's now you have to pay to use Midjourney. Midjourney images are much more high quality, as you can tell, compared to Dolly 2. In addition to using it for, just general visualizations, we can actually use it for some more, design-based work. And it's getting better. These top ones were, so this was an image I stuck into Midjourney and I described where folks had asked for a railroad in the middle of the interstate. And Midjourney was able to generate this image based on that. This is in downtown Tom's Brook from our walking tour we did last year. I asked it to put a park here because that's something that the mayor had wanted to see was a park behind town hall. And this is an example of what it was able to give just from like a couple seconds from using the Adobe Firefly tool. Another example of that is here in Newmarket. So Newmarket has a lot of very nice alleys. So you're able to just, I made this image in like 5 minutes because all you have to do is you outline places. So you outline where the asphalt is and say, make this into a brick walkway for an alleyway. Add the kitchen, the outdoor dining tables, a mural, people walking. I can show you all a little bit too. So this is that site in Tom's Brook. Here's the original image. It's one, so it gives you 3 options whenever you type in, different variations of what a park in Tom's Brook right there could look like automatically generated for you. This one, it went a little crazy with water, turned the site into a big pond. And then this is the Newmarket site. You can see this one, it's multiple different. Is it showing Photoshop for you all or? Okay, just making sure that it's actually showing the screen. So as you can see, it's got multiple different layers that were used. So that's where the people came in. That's where the lights in the top came in. That's where the chairs came in, the mural, and the walkway. And so and as I mentioned, like you've got different options. So that's one of the walkway ways. It could look like this, or could look like this one. I just felt like this option looked the best. So you can kind of just use it. Like I said, all you need to do is you outline an area. So let's say we want like a hot air balloon right here. You just circle the area, do generative fill. I say, just wait. But this could, I mean, it's certainly not going to be nearly as good as if you pay a professional to do street design or any types of photoshopping for you, but it's going to be good enough that you probably could show it to the public. It looks enough like a hot air balloon to me. So that's another really good tool that folks can use. And if you have Adobe, that's included within your subscription. I think Firefly might also have some online versions that you can use for free as they, kind of test this out and roll it out. Another tool, somewhat AI based, are digital twins, which are being rolled out by Esri. One of the best examples of that is with State College in Pennsylvania. So most every place has LiDAR data, so they can automatically use your LiDAR data, automatically make the tree canopy, your building layout, and create pretty much a ArcGIS 3D model for you to show your product, show your upcoming projects, run different impact analyses. But there's also a really integrative dashboard that you can use that allows you to plan with scenarios based on certain projection or certain areas that you want to hit, be it population or water demand or other aspects like that. One thing that you can do, which is a little fun, so some people have figured out how to jailbreak ChatGPT, and in jailbreaking it, you can assign it personalities. So for example, we could assign it the personality of Jane Jacobs, and we could say, hey Jane, I've already put in this, so it's already pre-prepared for the presentation. So hey Jane, we looking about market. And then it's going to take that persona of that person and start acting like you've got your personal Jane Jacobs consultant or some other consultant. And then if we want to, let's say we want to use the same prompt, but let's ask Robert Moses. So, hey, Robert. So Robert is a little bit more reformed. He does talk about equity. He would not have done that when he was around, but if you still ask him things like you really want to get a highway built, he will tell you exactly how he would build a highway. Um, but again, it's another really cool tool. If there's certain people like Kevin Lynch or other planners that you really rely on for like their vision and planning, this is a way to kind of get what it may be their insight based on their literary works that have been published. As I mentioned too, so the way we came up with those images I showed earlier from the public input, what we can do is we can take results, which I'm about to show you all. Yeah, I can do that. Might as well actually, I might as well go ahead and do that now since it's going to make sense as I explain this. So I'm going to pull the results from the sheet that all your all's responses to the survey went to. What I do is I'm just going to take them and we're going to go to what's called NovelAI. I think you can do this in ChatGPT. We've always used NovelAI, at least this is what we used since last fall, before ChatGPT kind of became the hot thing on the market. So this is supposed to be used for people who are doing like Dungeons and Dragons or some other like storytelling thing. But there's a little trick here where it's called the lore book. You can add entries, and in that entry, we can add results from a survey. And we could add tagline with AI or planning. So whenever I say those terms, it will play on those. So now that that's saved in there, we can type in the future. You kind of start the sentence and then you hit send. And it goes from that lore book. So now you've given it a new repertoire, a thing to build its base on, a new language base, and it will pull from that and go ahead and give you something. So, we use that in that way to generate images. So we then would take, this description into DALL-E 2, and then we can hit generate. And what it'll do is it'll make images based on the short description that just came from that analysis. And of course, this is AI, so it's not like you're going to be like, oh, that really represents with me. But if you've asked folks, like, do the next question that was asked, which was your ideal community. So if we copy those and we go back to NovelAI, we do a new story, add this into the lore book. So copy that. And what this does too is it kind of, you could argue, starts to take some of the bias out of our analysis of text-based responses to surveys. It's also can be very hard to figure out ways to analyze quantitative types of results of surveys. But here's some examples. What it thinks the general consensus of at least this call of what the ideal community would look like. So that stands out to anybody, or that represents somebody that hopefully works. But again, it's just a fun little way that you can easily, start to pull together narratives or ideas from quantitative data, other than just saying like so many words were said, or a word cloud, or some other form that kind of become a little bit ambiguous and about counting rather than the actual qualitativeness of the data. There are concerns too with these tools as they come out. I'm not sure if many of you had heard about the person who was fooled by someone who was able to take 3 seconds of your voice and then they can duplicate your voice. It's one of those things from Voice Labs that allows you to make any image, be able to talk. So you could technically take any person's image and make them talk with the voice that they have, you cloned with Voice Labs. There's also a lot of concerns about the potential for this to, replace a lot of jobs or concerns if, the AI would become sentient. I'm just here to present how it could benefit you with planning. But it's good to know that there are potential planning related conundrums that we will face as these tools roll out. So that's the basics of pretty much everything that's out there for AI tools. Anybody have any questions?
I'm gonna ask one, and I could probably figure this out on my own, Tyler, but I would rather maybe you show me. So I just have the unpaid free version of ChatGPT linked to my Gmail. I've used it for a couple things since you showed it to us last month. And I want to add plugins, but I've never done that before with anything. So can you walk through how to do that?
Yep. So should have left a link. Yeah, link to all the plugins. So you would just click on one of those plugin links. I guess all my short URLs broke. That's great.
It's working for me. I did the one for internet. So I clicked on the link and it popped up with my Chrome web store and I just hit add to Chrome and add extension.
Well, so what you do is you just find one. It's once you just click add to your Chrome.
Okay,
Mine's already been added, so
that's easy enough. I didn't know if there was something you had to
just,
do to like link it or whatever. So thank you.
that's all. You just need to add it to your Chrome.
Hmm.
Any other questions folks have on any of the tools that are out there?
Have you presented any of these AI generated images to the public yet?
Yeah, we've so like I said, we used the DALL-E 2 stuff back in November, October last year. And when we presented to the Planning Commission and the board, the results from our community, we would get responses from the elected bodies that, those look like our community. As the board who oversees that. So no, it does work. Our I had this idea that you really could go through, have a meeting, get input, make your create the images, and potentially reach consensus in like a charrette-based format. We haven't done that yet, so hats off to anybody who wants to try that. See Josh's question. So how would you use this for comp plan community engagement? So I would say that a lot of this would be good to use for analysis of community engagement rather than using it as a tool for engagement. In the future, there's going to be ways that these tools are more integrated where you could have your document be represented in an AI and then the public can just ask it questions and it'll tell or maybe it'll have animated person who is going to use some voice to be able to explain your document at any time to the public. But I would say you'd still want to go through the typical methods of engagement for gathering information. This may just help you with either rapidly showing people at the same time you're getting information from people what the consensus might mean from that meeting, or being able to come back quicker, within like weeks, right, and show where the consensus is. You're still going to have to do surveys. I think you're still going to have to do meetings to get input because, like I said, all of this is trained on whatever data you give it. If you don't have data to give it, base it on whatever is on the internet of what it's been trained on.
I had another question actually about the analysis part of this. Are you able to change the tone, or does it auto-generate a tone when creating those narratives you mentioned? So if we plugged in public input responses and said, I don't know, excited versus you plugged in something that was, say, getting angry public input, would it change how the story narratives are written to the point of almost distorting the feedback we've received?
I guess there's a chance of that. I mean, I guess you would need a lot of the responses to be angry or, having that emotion. For the most part, a lot of the stuff that we were using was like, hundreds of responses, that otherwise we would be analyzing it with word clouds or some kind of word diagrams, and they're good, but you don't get the narrative out of it. I think, the more data, the less likely you're going to have a problem with like overbearing tones impacting it. There are also, I mean, I didn't go over those today, but there are like sentient based things that can analyze your public input data and tell you whether or not it's happy or sad or excited, and rate it based on that. Anybody on here used any AI tools yet in your work?
I've just dabbled in it in Page County since you showed it to us last month. Just looking at some potential code language for our query.
Well, I think with a lot of these tools, as with any tool you use for work, the more you use it, the more familiar you're going to be, the more likely you're going to integrate it into your workflow. As I said, I think with any of these, you take it with a grain of salt. It's not going to be something that you can rely on yet, maybe within a year, sure. But for now, you need to constantly be like reviewing the work that's been done with it and validating it. But it can at least get you started if you're stuck. Any other questions you all have?
I don't want to take up too much of your time, Tyler, but is there a way you can show us how you taught it to format to the format you were using?
Yeah, I can do that real quick. So let's say, let's find something we can format. I don't know, like we can take a zoning code, right? I'll grab our county zoning code.
That's a great example because that's kind of exactly what I was hoping I could show it to do.
Try and copy that, but not this one. This one's got a table. First copy a zoning district, and what you do is you'd say something like, review this text and reply yes.
Wow.
What was this, the business district? So it's a multi-use. We'll see. We're testing it out and see what it does. Okay, yep, no, it's doing it. So yeah, so it took our zoning code, now it's making a new zoning district. It's writing what, I think, come up with whatever allowed uses should be in that zoning district. The accessory uses. So yeah, no, it totally can. Hopefully there's no take the zoning consultant's job.
That's really cool. That's okay. Thank you. That was a great demonstration.
Yeah, so you just need to find whatever text you want it to copy at the start of it, say something like, and I'll probably follow this all up later this week with a paper. So I'll help you. But just ask it, yes, reply yes if you understand this. And then as you can see here, it will just run off of that.
Awesome. I did get an email from Brandon at the beginning of this that said he really wished he could be on this call and to let him know if it was recorded. So will you share the recording and your PowerPoint slides with us? Great.
Yep, I'll put them on the YouTube channel and send it out along with when I work on putting some stuff into a paper for everybody to use for the prompts.
Great.
Like I said, a lot of that stuff is like changing every week. So that's another reason why I kind of was like putting off when to kind of showcase some stuff, but maybe sometime later this year I can give an update based on how things go with AI tools.
Yeah, we could all share how we've used them in our planning work, and because I don't know about everybody else on the call, but at least it looks like me and Josh, well, here at the commission and Josh, once you brought it up last month, we've tried to integrate it a little bit into our tasks, and it's really exciting. A little bit weird because we don't know how to use it all yet, but also really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's you fumble as you're using it. You're just gonna have to know your way through. I've got ways that I've figured out how it works, but we might just have to like all update each other as we figure out new ways or things we can figure out it does.
Yep. Well, Tyler, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to host these meetings and also taking the time to put this presentation and all of your thoughts together and share it with us. It's really great information. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And if anybody has any questions about any of the tools that we showcased, feel free to reach out. Like I said, I'll send out the link to the recording, slides, and some of the prompts and things that you all could use.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.